It was about 2.5 years ago that we noticed something was going on with my mother. The first sign I saw was when I called to tell her we'd booked our tickets for a visit. I gave her our flight information. We chatted about something else for 10 minutes, and then she asked, "Have you booked your flights yet?" She had completely forgotten the conversation we had just had. My sister and I talked her into seeing her doctor, who sent her to a neurologist, who sent her for tests. The answer came back as cognitive decline, mild at the time, but with a more than 90% chance it would progress to dementia. My family has dealt with dementia before. Both my grandmothers had it in their mid-80s. But my mother was only 69 when her cognitive decline was diagnosed, and it has progressed since then. I'm finding that my grandmother's dementia at an advanced age, near the end of their lives, really cannot be compared with it happening to my mom so young. It has affected every aspect of my family's life, and probably will continue to do so for the next couple of decades. I don't talk about it much because it hurts so much. There will be no cure for my mom. Her condition can't be fixed. It can only be lived with. I've been reading the healing stories in the Bible differently since my mom's diagnosis. We usually focus on the physical cure. The dead little girl comes back to life. The woman's hemorrhage stops. A paralyzed man gets up and walks again. We tend to be skeptical of these miracles in the 21st century. We might write them off entirely as artifacts of a pre-scientific era. We might say that God healed people back then, but not anymore, not in our time. We might say that God still heals people today, but God works through medical treatments, doctors, nurses, physical therapists, researchers. Yet the question I bring to these healing stories now is, what else is going on here besides a physical cure? How can God heal my mom and others with progressive or lifelong conditions, even if they can't be cured? The Gospel of Mark gives us two examples to consider. A father asks Jesus to heal his dying daughter. As Jesus is on his way there, he's interrupted by a woman with a hemorrhage, and he heals her. Then Jesus heals the dead little girl. The technical term for this ABA structure is an intercalation. We might think of it as a miracle sandwich. The bread, if you will, is Jairus and his daughter. Jairus is a leader of the synagogue. The office of rabbi did not exist yet within Judaism, so he's probably a prominent, well-off member, the kind of faithful person who's there every Sabbath and knows how to get things done. He and his wife have a 12-year-old girl at that awkward age poised between childhood and adolescence, and she is close to death. We don't know what's happened to her, whether it's a sudden illness or a chronic one, but it's bad enough that Jairus fights through a great crowd to get to Jesus. Jairus is desperate, as though he's tried everything else, and only a holy man with a reputation for healing can help now. Jairus throws himself at Jesus' feet and pleads, "Please, please come. Please lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live. Please, please." Jesus has compassion for Jairus. His wealth and position don't matter. What Jesus sees is a frantic father about to lose a child. So Jesus follows Jairus to his home. The crowd goes with them. The crowd goes everywhere with Jesus. He's that famous now. And in the crowd is a woman who has suffered from hemorrhages for 12 years. The constant heavy periods have made her anemic and weak. She never has energy. She used to have some means, enough to pay doctors to treat her, but none of them has helped. Her bleeding is even worse. As she got more desperate, she got more susceptible to charlatans. The snake oil salesmen have drained her savings, and now she's destitute. She's alone, too. She's too tired to see friends, too worried that she'll bleed through her clothes and people will embarrass her. And she feels cut off from God. She's been praying to be healed for 12 long years, and she thinks God has abandoned her. But the holy man Jesus has come to town. He's a great healer. Surely he'll succeed where everyone else has failed. So she joins the crowd, uses the last of her strength to push past others and to get near to Jesus. She reaches out and, with a fingertip full of hope, touches the hem of his cloak. Immediately, the bleeding stops and she is cured. Immediately, Jesus whips around and demands, "Who touched me?" At first, the woman hides behind a tall man wearing a flowing cloak. But as Jesus searches the crowd, she steps forward, falls at his feet, and tells him the truth. All of it. The blood and the doctors and 12 years and the poverty and loneliness and despair and 12 years. Jesus has compassion on her. He says, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." Her faith, her wavering, despairing faith, has made her well. Her future is now bright with possibilities of friends, community, some financial stability, a renewed relationship with God. She was cured when she touched Jesus' cloak, but she was healed when he spoke to her with compassion and restored her humanity. While Jesus is speaking to this woman, messengers come to Jairus to tell him his daughter has died. They don't seem to be kind about it at all. The word is, "She's dead. Don't bother him anymore." But Jesus reassures Jairus, placing a hand gently on his shoulder and telling him not to be afraid. Jairus takes a deep, shuddering breath, and together they go on to the house, with Peter, James, and John, Jesus' inner circle, following. Professional mourners have already shown up, beating their breasts and wailing like banshees. Jesus tries to quiet them, and they laugh at him. So Jesus ushers them out. Jairus is finally calm. Jesus doesn't want him getting fearful again. And anyway, Jesus needs to concentrate. He calls his disciples and Jairus and his wife and goes to the girl's room. He takes her hand and says, "Little girl, get up." And immediately she sits up in bed, stretches, stands up, and takes a step. Jesus has an Italian grandmother moment. "Look how thin she is. Somebody feed her." Jairus' faith, his desperate faith, has made his daughter well. The tear that threatened to open up in his family has closed again. Jairus can face the future with peace. The girl was cured when Jesus took her hand, but Jairus was healed when Jesus calmed his fear. What I hear in this story now is that in Jesus, God healed these people in many different ways, not only a physical cure. Jairus was healed from his fear and anxiety even before his daughter was raised. Jairus' family was breaking apart with his daughter's death, and this family was healed. It was made whole. The woman with the hemorrhage has had her relationships healed with other people and with God. She's been brought back into a social community and a faith community. Her finances have been healed. She can recover from the hole her illness has pushed her into. Fear and anxiety healed, family healed, relationships healed, finances healed. None of these kinds of healing depend on a physical cure. Relationships, family, fear can all be healed even as a person takes their last breath and dies. And God can heal more than individuals, more than families. God can heal societies and cultures too. The people who have taught me the most about healing are some friends of ours, Heather and Justin Lanier and their daughters Fiona, who's 10, and Petra, who's 8. Some of you might know them, actually. Heather did her MFA at Ohio State, and Justin was sponsored for ordination by St. Stephen's on campus. He and I were in seminary together. As Heather writes in her memoir, Raising a Rare Girl, when Fiona was 3 months old, she was diagnosed with a rare genetic deletion. She is missing the short arm of her 4th chromosome. Her syndrome causes major physical and intellectual disabilities. Yet Justin and Heather insist that Fiona is not damaged goods. She doesn't need fixing because she is already good and whole and holy, exactly as she is. What does need healing is a society that says your worth as a human being comes from your achievements and productivity. The kind of society that has no use for kids like Fiona or adults like my mom. It's that presumption that needs fixing. Your worth comes because God created you and you are good, even with a missing short arm of the 4th chromosome, even with cognitive decline. Heather writes, I want some mystical savior to eradicate the assumption that disability is a curse, a calamity. Wouldn't that be the bigger miracle? There's not going to be a cure for my mother, and I've spent enough time in memory care facilities to know where our family is headed. But God can still heal her and me and all of us. God can heal our fear, our relationships, our families, our society. Some days we go to Jesus in confidence. Some days with despairing, wavering, desperate faith. Jesus has compassion on us. He reaches out and lays a gentle hand on our shoulders. And he says, don't be afraid. Go in peace. Your faith has made you well. Let us affirm our faith using the words of the Nicene Creed. We believe